You know, the difference between learning and praying is very deep. The difference between learning and praying is very deep. And it's actually the other way, the way we are accustomed to think. We always think when it comes to prayer in terms that I'm asking and God is answering. When it comes to learning, the other way around, God tells me something and I'm listening, I'm accepting it, I'm learning it. The truth is the other way around. When I'm praying for something, how come I'm praying for this? Why am I not praying for something else? That means basically I'm answering God's prayer because God wants to give it to me. But He doesn't want to give it to me just like this, so He makes me pray for it. So in the deepest depths, my prayer is actually the answer to God's prayer. Learning is the other way around. Learning is God's answer. Because mamish, if I wouldn't be thirsty and hungry for it, you cannot learn unless you're completely desperate. Anything you learn, you're not desperate for it, is meaningless. You know, for instance, you can learn something and one remembers and the other doesn't. Because one was desperate and the other wasn't. But one has meaning, the other one is sweet. So now, say brother, this is a little bit from Hashiloach. It says, V'yomer Hashem al Avraham. God says to Avraham, you know, the first time God spoke to Avraham, actually, this is actually the beginning of us Jewish people, you know, because Avraham was the first Jew. First thing a Jew has to learn is Lekh-Lekha. And again, I'm sure most of you learned the portion last week, but if not, let me just review it very fast. God says to Avraham, Lekh-Lekha, leave your country, from your hometown, from your father's house, to the land which I will show you. So now everybody knows, let's say I'm living in San Francisco. And God says to me, leave. What am I leaving first? First I'm leaving my father's house, then I'm leaving the city, then I'm leaving the country. God says just the other way around. First leave your country, then leave your city, and then leave your father's house. So everybody understands God does not talk about the physical leaving. Although Avraham Avinu left physically also. But the most important thing is spiritually. The first thing is easiest to leave as a country. You know, all the evil habits of the country, not so bad. You know, because you go from easier to harder, right? The evil habits of my own city is a little bit harder to get rid of. But the hardest thing is all the evil habits of my father's house. That's the hardest thing. So God says to him, first leave your country, your city, and your father's house. And everybody, I'm sure if you kids know, Lekh-Lekha means go to yourself. Lekh-Lekha. And the Zohar Kodesh says, Le'isakne game, to be misaken yourself, to fix yourself. You know, it's very strong, you know, I'm sure some of you kids are really into it. It's not enough to do good, it's not enough. You gotta fix your soul, right? Tikkun Anshama. From the Baal Shem Tov on, this is all there is to it, especially for Mashiach is coming. Tikkun, right? I gotta fix my soul. Because I can do everything right, and if I don't fix my soul, I'm still broken. What good is it? Got to fix my soul. So God says to him, Lekh-Lekha, go to yourself, go and fix yourself. How do I fix myself? You know, the first thing is I have to get out of all the evil habits of my whole surrounding. And maybe some of you could remember what Rambam says that the strongest influence on people is their surrounding, right? I don't have to tell you. Today everybody studies sociology. So you know that environment is the strongest education in the world, right? So the Rambam says the holiness of Avraham Avinu was the first person in the world with a fight environment, right? That's different. If I'm living in Borough Park, I cannot say I'm defying the environment. Today, there's already a Jewish environment, right? I'm living in Yerushalayim and I go Shabbos to the Holy Wall. I say I'm defying environment. I'm not. Avraham Avinu was defying environment. And the holiness is, on a whole, that we Jewish people are still alive is because deep down we have this tremendous strength to defy environment. The whole world is doing this, I'm doing something else. Okay, but this is all on a simple level. This is not what Hashiloach says, because this is obvious. Now comes the Holy Hashiloach. Lekh-Lekha, it says, Ki etzek mayim al tzomeh. You know, if someone is mamish thirsty, you know how much thirsty is for water? God says, Ki etzek mayim al tzomeh. I'll give water. It's a posuk in Yeshaya and Isaiah. Because the Medrash and Zohar Kodesh both begin the portion of Lekh-Lekha with this passage. Ki etzek mayim al tzomeh. V'noizlim al yabosha. You know, when the earth is completely dry, how much this earth is just longing for one glass of water, a little bit more. The whole thing of why did God talk to Avraham Avinu? Why didn't he talk to anybody else? Because Avraham Avinu was mamish hungry. He was mamish thirsty. God doesn't talk to you if you're not thirsty, right? Imagine if we would be really so desperate to hear God's voice, we would hear it. I would say, listen, why should God talk to me? You know, it's, God bless you. If God doesn't talk to me, it's because I can do without it. Remember Torah in Chassidus, it says, why was Moshe Rabbeinu chosen to stand on Mount Sinai? Why didn't I go? Why didn't you go? Because sadly now we are content to know what God wants us to do. Moshe Rabbeinu, mamish wanted to hear it from God. Desperate. So he's the one to go on. Anyway, now listen to this. What was Avraham Avinu thirsty for? Kashahischel Avraham Avinu levakish alachapesh achashoresh achaim shelo. Avraham Avinu wanted to get to the roots of life. You know, most of us, we just want to know what life is all about. We're already on a high level. Most people don't even care what life is. They just want to have their needs. They don't even know what they need. Avraham Avinu was mamish thirsty. Listen, kids, how about moving a bit closer so we will...
Shlomo, what's the difference between what life is and the rest of it?
I'll tell you, it's very simple. There's a difference between knowing what the apple is for and knowing what the whole tree is for, you know? Like I can take one apple and think I would like to know what the apple is all about. But if I get to the roots of the tree, then, you know, it's a much deeper kind of knowledge, right? You know, for instance, I can, let's say, on a Jewish level, I can get to think, what do I have to do as a Jew, right? What's my mission in life as a Jew? But then I can go even deeper. Why do we need Jewish people in the world in the first place, right? Well, what's the whole thing for, you know? You know, without getting involved, because I want to first learn this, but this is very, very deep, you know? Right now, you know, for instance, if you look into the world, right now God is really showing the world, you know, why God needs Jewish people in the world, right? Because the whole world is saying we don't need them, right? You know, if you look at the war, you know, the world, mamish, says we don't need Jewish people. I hate to say bad things, but you know, there was a big conference of another religion, I don't want to mention their names, and they decided that for the sake of world peace would be a tremendous thing to wipe out the Jews. On their only meaning for peace, right? Because they're God-loving people. And they always quote the Old Testament, the New Testament, because you know all about. And they had the chutzpah to say that if for world peace would be better to wipe out the Jews, then for the sake of God, let the Jewish people be wiped out. Disgusting, man. Disgusting, evil, murders, man. So, what is God showing the world? Right now God is opening all the gates of heaven. And showing the world, look at the whole world, look at my Yiddish. Very strong. Anyway, so Avraham Avinu wants to know, not only, at that time there was no Yiddish yet, right? Avraham Avinu wants to know, what is the whole thing for? What did you create the world for? What's going on here? Because one thing he understood, Asher kol chemdes olam hazeh lo yiskinu likos p'nim chaim amitim. He says, because all what's going on in the world is not called real living. You cannot say, wow, I went to Bermuda, had a good time, and I was really alive. If this is all there is to life, for this God created such a big world. Meaning to say, if you really believe in God, this is all He can offer to the highest creature He created, a little vacation in Bermuda. That's all God can give you. If a person says, I went to a party, it was such a good time, this is called, that's all, this makes you happy, Or someone says, thank God, the stock market is going up. Okay, it's very sweet, I have nothing against it. But the question is, for this, God is to create the whole world and put in man a little part of himself, create God in His image, create man in His image, that just doesn't go right. So Avraham Avinu understood one thing, this isn't where it's at. Then he understood something else, that most of the things we're looking for in the world, okay, listen, imagine if I need a new suit, right? I'm so crazy, I need a new suit. But then I have it already. Or what I have after I have it. So I have it. Go on, right? I'm hungry, I want to have a good meal. Okay, I had the good meal. What's after? Most things in the world, after you had them, you have nothing. Because all you wanted to have them, right? So you had it. This can't be life. Because life has to be something which only begins after you have it. Let's put it this way on a sad level. A lot of people get married because they want to get married. So they're married. After that, gunish, right? So they're married. Which is the saddest thing in the world, right? Was a bad thing in the first place. The truth is, if they're really married, then it should begin after, right? Okay, they want to get married, it's very sweet, but after. So Avraham Avinu realized that all the things which I have, and I'm only hungry for them before I have them. And after that, who needs them? This can't be it. So Avraham Avinu, we learned it later, but I just want to tell you now, Avraham Avinu, can you imagine, it's heartbreaking. You know what was going on in the world? It was much like today. Okay, let's say 6 million Jews died, right? It's very sad. Can you imagine the whole world drowned? We don't even have a concept to fathom it. Can you imagine? The whole world drowned and one family was left. Just unbelievable. This isn't enough. A few years later, people make a Tower of Babylon, and there's right away they kill each other, knock each other off. So what was the world's reaction to that? Nothing. The world didn't react. One little holy Yidele Avraham Avinu. He was mamish thirsty. He says, mamish, you got to tell him what this is all about. So God says to him, Lekh-Lekha. Lekh-Lekha. God says to him, this is mamish so beautiful, listen to this. God says to him, Lech, go away from everything and Lekh-Lekha and go to your own soul. Go to your own self. Ve'ikar hachayim timsubach. God says to him, listen, Avraham Avinu, don't look for life outside of you. It's mamish right inside of you. Listen to this. Because it says, V'ato togir b'Hashem v'kdosh yisrael tishalu. Mamish, you know, what is life? Life is that I'm completely mamish, I know there is one God. I mamish know there's one God. It says, V'ato togir b'Hashem, you mamish rejoice in God. V'kdosh yisrael tishalu, and the Holy of Israel you mamish. Tishalu means actually you blow your mind, right? You know, mamish. So God showed him according to the holy Ishbitzer. God says to him, the very fact that you're the only one who mamish cares, because you really want to know. Therefore it's you. Therefore the answer's right in the depths of you, right? So he says to him something very, very deep. This is really the deepest depth. God says to him, to Avraham Avinu, he said, it's very beautiful and it's very sweet that you are so turned on to ask all those questions because what's happening in the world, right? You see a whole world drowning, you see a generation of the Tower of Babylon and everything is turning over. So God says to him, this is very strong, but this isn't the strongest yet. Because the truth is, he says, do you need a flood to remind you of God? Do you need the Tower of Babylon and all the things, all the rottenness of the world to remind you of God? Why can't you do it on your own? Just between you and God. So God says, Lekh-Lekha, go away what's happening from everything which is happening in your country, go away from everything which is happening in your father's house. But mamish, between you and God. Lekh-Lekha, you know, mamish, go to yourself. Now listen to this. So God says to him, I don't know if I make myself clear, but anyway, that's what he says. God says, go to the land which I will show you. You know, listen to this. Imagine, it's not only that I want to know what I'm supposed to do. It's not enough that I want to know what my roots of life is. Can you imagine the deepest depths of my wanting is, I really would like to know what God thinks of me. It's the deepest depths of the world. If I could only have a little glimpse, why did God create me? What does He want of me? What does God think of me? Listen, we're so concerned what people think of me. Right? But in the deepest, deepest depths, because we don't have the chutzpah, we don't dare thinking, I wish I would know what God thinks of me. Right? I wish I would know. Can you imagine what revelation? But Avraham Avinu was on that level. Avraham Avinu, mamish, was hungry. He didn't care what the world thinks of him, obviously. He loved the world, but he didn't care what they think of him. Remember we're learning from Reb Nachmen? People who always think, what does somebody else think of me? They don't really care for those people. But people who don't care what you think of me, they really care for people. Listen, I care for you, I love you. I don't care what you think of me. You know, I still have to do what they think is right. But anyway, Avraham Avinu, mamish wants to know what God thinks of him. I'll tell you in Hebrew it says, Avraham Avinu hu yugoydel shekosel later mokum devekus chiyusa. Mamish, he wants to know how far am I reaching, how deep am I reaching? Where do I reach God? What is my connection between me and God? So God answered him that you are reaching to the level which is completely infinite. And God answered him, you should go to the land which I will show you, Meaning that every second I reveal you more. It's not a one night stand. Your mamash reaching that level which is completely infinite. I will reveal you always more and more and more. And he says, and this is the holiness of Israel. This is so deep, you know. Like Israel is the one place where you're so much in touch with the infinite. But the whole world is infinite, but Israel is really so strong. You are mamish in touch with the infinite. Like God is completely revealing infinite things all the time. And then God says to him, "Vayeh brocha, you should be a blessing." This is the deepest depths. What does it mean to be a blessing? It's very, very deep. To be a blessing means to have vessels for the tremendous things which are flowing down from heaven. You know, every minute, every second, there's never a stop of the great flow which is coming down from heaven. So where is it? Why don't we have it? We have no vessels. Okay, last Shabbos was so high. How come I didn't feel it anymore? I didn't put it there. I had no vessels for it. So brocha means, you know, it's really very, very deep. To be a blessing means to have vessels. And if you have vessels, blessing vessels, you know, then those vessels get deeper and deeper and deeper, always more and more. You know, ordinary vessels, after you fill them, they're full. Blessing vessels, the more you fill them, the more empty you get. Suddenly they get more room, more room, more room, more room. Then he says something very deep. What does it mean? God says to him, leave your country, your city, and your father's house. He says something about it. It's really heartbreakingly deep, you know. As long as I'm really drowned in habits, I'm just a machine. Even if I have the holiest habits in the world, I'm still a machine. The first thing, I'm the most finite thing in the world, even if I have holy habits, but I'm still finite. So the first thing is I have to break away from all the habits I have. Completely break away. This is my country. My city is, this is very, very deep. My city is the way I receive life. Like from food or the money I make, everything which is where I receive life from. I have to receive life from a much higher level. Much deeper than all that. You know, if all I need to live is a little bit bread, it's very sweet, but if this is all that gives you life, then God can't talk to you either. Got to break away from this. You have to receive life from a much higher level. And then he says, from your father's house, this is the deepest depth of this. He says, you got to be so much in touch with the roots that even if things look alike, you still know the difference. This is the greatest problem today in the world, you know? The world doesn't know the difference. You know, sometimes without saying bad things, now I'm listening to people talking about God, right? They sound good, but your nose tells you it's, right? And this is my basic, we've got to break away from this, from your father's house. Even all the things you learned about God, about everything, you've got to break away from it. It has to be real. You know, a lot of people, let's say for instance, you know, two people, a poor man walks in, and two people give him $1. If you look at them from outside, both did the same thing, right? But if you look very deep, one gave $1 and one gave everything there is, right? Mamish gave. One gave $1 and Mamish, the other one put his heart, his soul, and everything. You know, it's very deep. Sometimes two people shake your hands. One person, you shook his hand, the other one, you shook their soul, right? on an action level, both the same. Right? So God says you have to get away from all this. Then he says something so deep. What does it mean? God says, go to the land which I will show you. After you broke away from all those habits, after you have a good nose to know the difference, who is real and who is not, and God says, I will show you secrets which nobody knows. Suddenly you'll see the whole world on a different level. Little kids, you know that Avraham Avinu was praying for Sodom. Isn't that crazy? The most low, rotten city in the world, right? I don't know if some of you kids know. In Sodom, the law was if you're caught giving something to a poor man, they kill you. It's the biggest crime in the world. I don't know if some of you kids remember, just maybe you do, maybe you don't. Let me just tell you fast what happened. Why did God destroy Sodom on that day? Some of you kids remember. Because the daughter of Lot, if some of you kids remember, when she was Mamash Avraham Avinu, greatest pupil. Shalom. Come here. So, anyway, there was a poor man in Sodom and he hadn't died yet. That happened a lot of times. So people thought, if there's a poor man, eventually he better die, what's he living from? Anyway, so they investigated a little bit. They found that this little girl, who was 12 years old, the daughter of Lot, is feeding. So you know what they did? They put her on top of a roof and covered her with honey, and the bees ate her up, It's the most painful death in the world. Avraham Avinu was praying for Sodom. How can he pray for Sodom, But now listen to this, craziest thing. Maybe some of you could remember that Lot, the nephew of Avraham Avinu, lived in Sodom, and he had 2 daughters, and eventually Ruth, who is the mother of King David, and eventually the mother of Mashiach, the Messiah, was coming out from Lot, right? So Avraham Avinu, his eyesight was so deep, the way he looked at Sodom, he saw that the fire of Mashiach is burning there. Can you imagine? That means Avraham Avinu, behind all the evil, behind all the disgusting, terrible things that were going on, Avraham Avinu saw, mamish, behind all this, something holy happening. Where's those 2 books I have? This mamish so strong to remember, at this point. Do you know that the generation of the flood was supposed to be the generation of receiving the Torah? It means basically, according to God's schedule, God wanted to reveal himself to the generation of the flood. Maybe some of you kids remember that Moshe Rabbeinu lived in the time of the flood. You remember that? He also drowned. Yeah? Moshe Rabbeinu lived in the time he was also alive. And he was supposed to become the great leader. But he was one of the people of the flood, stole, what he did, everything. Moshe Rabbeinu. What? He drowned also. Yeah. What?
Where is this from?
All of them, everything. So Moshe Rabbeinu came back because the whole generation of the flood came back, and they were the people who were slaves in Egypt. They had to make up what they did wrong during the flood. What? They didn't. That's the whole thing. Was so afraid of water all the time. Because Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, Minamayim Mishasiyu, God says, I drew you out from the water. That means that Moshe Rabbeinu had corrected already the first time drowning, That's why it was called Moshe. Anyway, the question is, Noach was a holy man, right? And Avraham Avinu was a holy man. Why do we Jewish people begin with Avraham and not with Noach? What? So the answer is very simple, but just in a nutshell. By Noach it says, Es Elokim es halach Noach. Noach was walking with God. So Avraham Avinu, God says, his halach lefona, God says to Abraham, walk before me. What's the difference in walking before God and walking with God? And the answer is on a simple level, in a very deep sense. To walk with God means to walk as much as God showing to you, As much as God revealing to you, that's how much I know. Walk before God means even what God hasn't showed me yet, I'm already there. Before God is showing it. The thing is like this. Now listen to this. There are two levels. It's really very strong. There are two levels. There's a level of knowing God, and there's a level of believing in God. What's the difference? I can only know what's revealed, right? I cannot know what's not there, right? What's hidden. To believe in God is mamish to be in touch with that which is not seen. The first one was mamish on that level to reveal that which is hidden. This was the whole thing of Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu, when it says Vehemin Bashem, the first time we find in the Torah that God says about somebody he believed is Avraham Avinu. Noach knew God. He knew there was one God. I'm sure he believed also, but this wasn't his thing. Noach was knowing God. He knew, he looked in the world, there was one God. Avraham Avinu says Vehemin Bashem, he believed in God. But you know the difference between knowing God and believing in God is very simple. The question is, how much are you in touch with all those things which are hidden? The deepest depths of it. I'll tell you something very deep, The difference between knowing a person and believing in a person, right? If you know a person, you know all the usage. I know when he wakes up and he goes to sleep, I know he's good, he's bad. But you're not in touch with the deepest depths of this person, with the secret part of that person, right? If I believe in a person, that means I have a taste and the deepest depths of it. So the whole difference between Avraham Avinu and Noach is Noach also is a sweet servant of God, but he is not on the level to reveal all that which is hidden, which is really the real thing. Right? So the difference is very simple, it's really beautiful. Noach looked at the world, they're all rotten to the core, let them go to the dogs, let them drown, they're bad. How come he didn't see that their souls were so holy that basically they were meant to receive the Torah? Didn't see it, right? Avraham Avinu was so holy, he looks at Sodom, and they saw the light of Mashiach burning, right? Because mamash, can you imagine? And Sodom is the lowest city in the world. Avraham Avinu says, Gewalt, what a city, He says, I see the light of Mashiach burning there. So the whole thing, this is really very strong. The whole deepest depth of a Jew is that you have mamish to believe so much. How come that we Yidalach still believe in the world, right? We're persecuted for 2,000 years, they kill us, they want to knock us off, but we still believe in the world. Because we believe in the world, right? If I would say, I know the world, be crazy. What do you mean you know? Read a newspaper, you'll know the world, right? If I know the world, I hate the world, right? Believe in the world. Something else. Now listen to this. But then there's a level of Moshe Rabbeinu. By Moshe Rabbeinu it says, Achrei Hashem Lekh-Lekha, to walk behind God. So you see this as three levels. Noach's level is to walk with God. To walk with God means whatever God shows me, that's what I know. Avraham Avinu is to walk before God. All the things which God hasn't showed me yet, I believe in it. I'm in touch with it. But then there's a higher level, walking behind God. If I schlep after behind somebody, what does it mean? I'm completely annihilating myself after the person I'm schlepping after it. Listen to this is very deep. There is a level which is even deeper, because if I say something is revealed and something is hidden, that means I'm still talking about a light which is a little bit hidden, a little bit revealed. But imagine if I want to reach the level that mamash heaven should come down to this world. That the greatest light, even more than there was hidden. Mamash, I want God to reveal Himself completely to me. This is Achrei Hashem. I want mamash want to annihilate myself before God. I want the light of God to shine down into this world. So he says this is really what the Torah is all about. What does it mean to study Torah? Study Torah means I really want to taste the great light. Not the way the way I understand it, the way it really is. Beyond, it's deeper than being half hidden and half revealed. It's much deeper than all, because this is still part of the world. The Torah is mamish to bring down God's light the way it is. Now listen to this. This is very strong. A person has to know one thing that's really unbelievably deep. You have to do something in this world. And you have the choice you have in this world is only between rebuilding the world or destroying it. There is no in between. It's very strong to remember. A person cannot live just do nothing, it just doesn't go. Or you're destroying the world, or you're adding something to the world which was never there before. Because basically every person is created in the world not just to go through life. Every person in the world has to add something to the world. You've got to add something to the world. If you don't, you're destroying it. This is very beautiful. So what's happening to the world now? They're adding to the world, right? They're creating new things. What do? They find missiles to destroy the world. They're adding, right? They're doing something, but they're really destroying the world, right? Because they're really not in touch with what God wants of them, with all the knowledge they have. That's the world, right? But what we really are supposed to do in this world, this is very beautiful. You know, Avraham Avinu was the first one, this was his way. You know, if you want to mamish be a real holy Yiddeleh, the first thing you have to know. The first thing a Yiddeleh has to know, by Avraham Avinu it says, Salach lefone, go before me. What does it mean, go before me? It means I have to add to God in a certain way, right? I see a beautiful world. My thing is I have to go before God. Right? Add something new. That means it's really a gewalt, you know? Can you imagine what Avraham Avinu did? If there's a little bit, 1 ounce of humanity still in this world, it's because of Avraham Avinu, right? One little man in the world stood up and he says, Mamish, I have to make the world better. Really better. Not more luxury, more missiles, and faster aeroplanes. Which ultimately is really only destruction of the world. Because, you know, for instance, okay, I benefit from planes, but basically, you know, you look at the world, what's going on now is, you know, people fly around in the air and kill each other. It's just heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. One more thing is very important. There is a time when a person has to walk. And there is a time when you really have to stand still. Today is going to be very, very deep. The world is really moving fast, right? They're adding a lot of things, but they come to all lead to destruction. Because they don't take our time 5 minutes to see where we're going. They don't take out 5 minutes to stand. The whole world never stands still. So the Medrash says something so beautiful. God says to Avraham Avinu, Lekh-Lekha, go. So the Medrash says, start getting involved. Why did God tell Avraham Avinu to go? Because Avraham Avinu had already learned how to stand. Avraham Avinu was really on the level he could stand still and see what's going on there. And Avraham Avinu, between one step and the other, would always stand still. Gewalt, am I walking the right direction? Am I walking up or am I walking down? So he says something very, very beautiful. Basically, he says the whole davening, when a person davens, is really on the level of walking, right? When I daven, I want to walk higher, higher, higher. But then, at that moment, when I say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, God is one, I'm not walking. At that very second, I say, Mamish, God is one, this is how I'm standing still. Do you know that? When I say Shema Yisrael, I'm not permitted to walk, physically, you know? I can walk around the whole davening. When I say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, it's to such an extent that if I said it while I was walking, it's a big shaila. if I may have to repeat it. Or let's say for the Shema Yisrael, when I'm sitting, I have to sit. You're standing, you're standing. Not only standing, but I'm not permitted to change my position. Sadly enough, I'm sure they mean well in some synagogues. Would the congregation please rise? To say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and then Baruch Hashem Jerusalem will sit down, which is very sweet. But this is contrary to the whole thing, because the whole idea is of Shema Yisrael. Till the end, you're in one position. You're standing still. You're not moving. You're not doing anything. Not only physically. Shema Yisrael is a time when I'm standing still. I tell you something very, very strong, take it or leave it. Imagine if someone would get married, and he would say, I'm really married to a very beautiful girl. And then I would say, what I do? Did I just say that he didn't marry a beautiful girl? Or am I literally saying that he has no taste, right? It's not only the girl I'm talking about, it's him I'm talking about, right? Just bear one thing in mind. We are really the chosen people, right? What is the world so angry at us? They're not angry at us. They say, God, you didn't have good taste, right? God says, I'm giving the land to the Yiddelach, right? So they want to say to God, listen, why did you give it to the Arabs, right? Suddenly they claim it's their holy place, nicht gestorben, nicht geflogen, right? Everything, The whole world, they want mamish. You have to realize one thing, So strong. Right now, the war began between Yom Kippur, and right now, all the beginning, the beginning, we're reading the beginning of the creation of the world. You have to realize one thing, the world is not fighting right now. They're fighting God who created the world. Right? They're saying that the God who created the world doesn't know what he's doing. Right? Very, very strong. Right now, mamish, the whole world is on a scale. I was traveling on the plane. I was talking to people. Very strange. Right now, it's the whole world is showing. All the people in the world on our side, they really believe in God. There's no two ways about it. If anybody can say today, I believe in God, but they don't believe in Israel, he really doesn't believe in God. He really doesn't. Take all those preacher-lach, they take all the prophets when it comes good for a Sunday morning service, for sermon. But why don't you read what the prophet said, that God is giving Israel back to the Jews? Take it. Take X-Lax and stomach it, But they can't stomach it, right? Because it's too real, right? Because then they really, it's mamish. I'll tell you something very strong. Right now, the world wants mamish to exterminate the Jews, And I'll tell you something stronger, which is very, very deep. As long as they killed 6 million Jews, they just wanted to exterminate the Jews. Maybe just the Jews. Right now, they really want to exterminate God. Because they want to kill the Jews right in Israel. Right in that place which God gave to us, the one in Nakasa. So mamish right now have to be so strong. Mamish, I'll tell you something very strong. My whole life, I'm not, I don't think maybe we Jews have to be so strong, I mean, you have to be inside, but maybe outside we can be more softer. You don't have to, take somebody from another religion and knock them off, Right now I do. Right now is the time. Because right now, I as a Jew can walk up to somebody else and tell him, listen brother, are you on my side or not? If you're not on my side, you're not on God's side. And I can say it in all honesty. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. Because do I have to be better than God? This is what God is doing right now. God is opening the gates of heaven. And let's see what the water is, A person right now, really, you really just have to really examine yourself. Which side are you on? Where are you? What kind of a Jew are you? What kind of person? I told before Markele and Neman and Yosele some holy stories. I want to tell you. First of all, I'll tell you one holy story. I spoke to this wounded soldiers in Adasa hospital. Most soldiers never, they're just so wounded, it's not that they cannot move, from their bed down to the hall. That's, just heartbreaking, They completely, not only bandaged and in those, they can't move, for months now. Anyway, but there are some soldiers somehow were able to be moved on wheelchairs and beds. So they were all together. So I was talking to them, and I said something about Avraham Avinu. One little soldier boy says to me, "Do you know how he looks like, our father Abraham?" I wish I would, He says to me, "I know how he looks like." He says, "Believe me, I see him every night in my dream." A little boy. Tell you another strong story. The thing is not only those soldiers, the way they fight, so much holiness. You wouldn't believe how much they're shining, You walk on the street and you see soldiers walking with guns in their hands and they're shining. Their mamish shining. They're mamish protecting Israel. They're mamish protecting God, so to speak, The most unbelievable way. This Shabbos morning, when a lot of soldiers came down to daven by the holy wall, it was just so holy, just cannot imagine. Gewalt, Anyway, but this is one part of it. So the second part is how much one soldier cares for the other, How many hundreds of soldiers die just protecting somebody else, I want to tell you one story which I think is the greatest in the world. I was talking to those kids never who were burnt in tanks, It was just so gruesome. God forbid you burn a little bit your finger, it hurts. Can you imagine you burn your whole body? Everything of you is burned, nothing. Some kids have no skin, no skin at all, It's just so gruesome to look at, It's the most gruesome thing I saw, It's even too horrible to say, Some boy had no skin anymore over his eyes, just everything was burned, just eyes sticking out, they're all red, just. And how many operations, plastic surgery they have to go through till they put some skin over their eyes, Anyway, this boy asked him, "How long did it take you after you were burning up that the Israelis found you?" So he says it was 2 hours. Can you imagine? 2 hours. So I said, "What happened after the 2 hours?" This I tell you the truth. I looked around and I saw there are kids who were even more burned than I am. So when it came my turn, I said to the doctor, "Please take somebody else because I still have strength to hold on." This is really the Holy of Holiest, An ordinary boy, I said to someone, all the stories we tell about Shem, that he was doing favors to people. All the tzaddikim would tell stories doing favors to people. It doesn't compare to this story. It doesn't compare. There was one boy, I heard a very beautiful story, It's very deep. There was one boy whose father was killed in 1948 up in the Golan Heights. And in a crazy way, he knew his father's handwriting. Don't you heard the story? The weird story. Anyway, this boy was one of the, on the Hermon, when they conquered back the Hermon, he walked up and he saw on a stone His father had written, can you imagine, his father was killed in 1948. He wrote, his name was Avraham Ben Yitzchak or something. And he writes on the stone, I, Avraham Yitzchak, was here, and if my son ever comes here, he wrote it in Hebrew, I want him to know that I was here already. Tremendous. You know, right now we're really following our forefathers. I want to tell you something else which is super strong. Which is, you know, there are those, you know, right on the sewers, you know, there were a lot of soldiers, you know. I mean, even during Yom Kippur, before the war began, I think the war began about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Listen to this crazy thing, 1:45, one officer was not so super religious, walked up to a boy, and who was religious. He says to him, I want you to do me a favor, I want you to go there and do something for me. He says, I can do it tomorrow also, you know, it doesn't burn. It's Yom Kippur today. He says, I'm telling you to do it, you know. So he says to him, if it's an order, you know, there's nothing you can do in the army, you have to listen to orders. He says, if it's an order, I have to do it. But if you're just saying it, then I won't do it. You know, so he didn't have the chutzpah to say it's an order, so he said, I'm just saying it. He says, okay, I won't do it. And it really had time till the next day, you know. So the officer says, I'm going to do it myself. At that, 5 minutes later, the war broke out. And this little officer was just there, was caught the first, was killed, you know. And the little Yidala who kept Yom Kippur was not killed. But I want you to know, all of Israel is talking about this. There was one Yechidah, how do you call it Yechidah? You know, one little unit. And they decided, despite the war, they decided that they will not stop praying Yom Kippur. And they had always a minion out of them who kept on davening. Can you imagine? Despite all the things that was going on. And every half hour they changed. And all night long they said Tillim. And they decided also, among us, there always have to be 10 people who say Tillim. The next morning they woke up. And all of them put on film, they davened. And there's not one Yechidah from the whole Suez when nobody was wounded, when nobody was killed. It's the only one. Can you imagine? But the whole Yechidah came back. I'm strong. Listen, I'm sure, Be'ez Hashem, when days will be better, someone will collect all those holy stories, you know. There is something heartbreaking. You know, Yom Kippur night, you know, late, when the Syrians attacked the Golden Heights, you know, there was one kibbutz there, you know, they drove up with their tanks, you know, it's a miracle. They didn't just, if they would have had more chutzpah, they could have just taken the tank and run off the whole kibbutz, but they were a little bit frightened. So this top officer ran out, and like nearly single-handed, he battled off the tank, few tanks. But then Nebuch, they shot him through the eyes here, Nebuch. And he started yelling, so his friend, another high officer, ran out to help him, and they shot him in the side, you know. So I was very, very strange, you know. I came to this hospital in Haifa, you know, Rambam. So the two are in the same room, you know, those two friends. And Nebuch, the one, you know, who was shot through the eyes, he has mamish beautiful eyes, you know, but he can't see anymore, you know. And from the tank, you know, because I don't know the whole thing was, you know, Nebuch, his hand is burned off, Nebuch, you know, so he has no eyes in one hand. My name is Shlomo Carlebach. So he says to me, I'm sure it's good to look at you, but I'm sorry I can't see you, Nebuch, you know. So I said, it's very, very holy to look at you, you know, you're shining like the high priest on Yom Kippur, you know. So he says, he says, you're telling me stories. I don't think it's that strong, you know. I says, believe me, I think it's even stronger, you know. Because the high priest, when he walked out from the Holy of Holies, he had his hand on his feet, you know. But you gave everything for the Holy Land. You know? And strange. You know? Got to tell you one more story, then we got to sing a song, we got to have and forget all the sad things, got to have the holy engagement. But I want you to know one thing, you know. During one of my little playings for one of the little units, suddenly they caught 9 Egyptian soldiers, you know. Because they had no more water, so they came to give themselves up. It was just heartbreaking to see, you know, the way these Jewish soldiers treat those Egyptians, you know. There was one wounded soldier, and they have to tie him up, you know. So they were so careful, you know, not to tie him up, just in order it should hurt him, you know. And I was standing there, and this officer was standing the whole time, be very careful, don't hurt them, and just treat them very good. The whole time, he told them 3 times, you know. So they gave them water, you know, because they were thirsty. One of the Egyptians has a chutzpah. After they gave him water, and he says, we are going to kill all the Jews because Allah is on our side. So this one sweet little soldier, you know, I tell you something, I would have knocked him off, you know. What kind of chutzpah is that, you know? Or what kind of chutzpah is that, you know? So this little soldier boy says to him, he says, maybe you want some more water, you know? I don't know if this was a level of wrong, maybe higher, you know? I'm telling you, those kids have reached heights, you know, spiritual heights in just unbelievable way. You know? I can tell you one thing, you know? I don't know if I told you that the general of the Navy, you know, I was privileged to play there, you know. There were about, I don't know, maybe 2,000 soldiers. Zweit Mamish called me Fratz Shlomo. The Zweit Mamish by the top, the Red Sea, you know. And they Mamish, they're controlling the whole Suez and the whole thing. And anyway, this general sent word to me I should wait with my counsel till he comes, you know. So he came. Okay, you know, what can you do? Such a great man, you know. I don't know if you ever followed the war a little bit, you know. They did the most heroic things in the world, you know. Can you imagine one little? They went in on a blown up ship, you know. And the blown up ship, it's made out of how do you call it? They blow it up. How do you call it? What? What? Inflated boat. Can you imagine a million of kids went on a inflated boat right into the navy of the Egyptians, surrounded by Egyptian ships, and they captured the admiral of the Egyptians. They walked up to the ship, got him out, and on this blown up ship, on the inflated ships, they brought him back to a Gewalt, you know. But anyway, I tell you one thing, you know. God forbid, imagine they would have caught one of our generals, you know, what they would have done to them. Do you know that this admiral assembled all the officers and they went to greet him? I saw pictures. Amish, they shake his hand, and the admiral says to him, you know, I'm so sorry that we couldn't invite you earlier to visit her, would have been so much nicer, you know, would have been with us. So he says, I'm sorry. But anyway, I just want you to know, I saw pictures, the way he looks after he was caught, this Egyptian. Amish beaming, you know. he never seen people like this, you know. I'm sure, you know, he thought was probably the way they are told, well, the Mamish is saw for the first time human beings, you know. And then the same day, I don't know if you saw this picture of 6 soldiers in Syrian, you know, frightened, you know, and cut. I don't know if you saw this boy, you know, his whole face is cut up, you know. Gewalt, you know. But anyway, just right now, you know, God is really showing the world. You know, I want you to know one sweet thing. Imagine if this is my shirt. It happens to be my shirt. It could have been somebody else's shirt also, right? But imagine if there's a shirt which is mamish made to my measure. Nobody else can wear it. They can wear it, but it doesn't fit them. It's more than my shirt. It really is my shirt. Same as countries, There are countries in Switzerland. The Germans could live there also, so Swiss people. Swiss people live there. India, the Chinese could have lived there also, but it so happens that Indians live there. Israel, it's not just it belongs to us, It was made according to our measure. It really is so. I don't know if you know this. The Medrash says, how do we know it belongs to us? It's very simple. Because there's no people in the world who can build the Holy Land. For 2,000 years, how many nations passed by the Holy Land? They couldn't build it. It doesn't go. A Yidele comes, a Gewalt. In Sharm el-Sheikh, the Egyptians were there for so long, They lived there like animals, I had to tell you bad things. For 15 years, they were living there, they didn't even make bathrooms, they were just living like animals. The Yidele there, not only did build it, they're building many motels. Motels. Mamash, right? Do you know how beautiful it is there? Have you ever been on a Greek island? Very beautiful. Sharm el-Sheikh is, first of all, it's the most purest air in the world, Mamash, pure air. And the ocean is just so beautiful. And there's a little motel there, And they're building a whole city now. And they've already put pipes there to get water. They're rebuilding Mamish everything. It's Mamish our country. Mamish. On one hand, it's really good, to tell you, politically, that the United States is not really helping us, only half. Because God really wants us to know that He's the only one who's really on our side. Because if, God forbid, there would be one more country completely on our side, it wouldn't be so complete. So it's good. They're helping us. We need them for weapons and a few things, like little shamsel, God told them, okay, knock it off, give some weapons. It's not real, Mamish not so real. I forgot to tell you, this admiral, on his table, he has a Torah, Tanakh, he has a Tilamel. And the Tilamel is wet from water, Because he told me he never goes on a ship without the Tilamel in his hand, And he goes all the time with those little ships. They have Mamish the most dangerous missions in the world, it's dangerous to be in the air also, but it's not so much man to man. You know what he told me, what they did the day before it came? 2 days. He showed me, Mamish, still hanging on the wall, a map of a little island, which was held by the Egyptians. It was very bad, because from that island you can, they really had to surround the Third Army, So he says like this, most unbelievable thing, he says that 2 brothers, unbelievable. Ordinary kids, One is in the Navy, the other one is in the Air Force. So those 2 brothers decided, we got to get this island off, So he says the one who's in the Navy has only one arm, because he was wounded in the 6-day war. Then he says he was 2 years in Egypt as a prisoner of war, and they knocked him off, and his mamish, every part of his body is sick, And he was begging him. He says, you cannot join the army now. He says, I got to, And he took him because he's mamish a hero, So he says his brother took a little plane at night, and he flew around a little bit the island to measure the island, to know exactly how big it is, how small. Then the brother, can you imagine, took a little blown up boat again, and he had a few kids, and mamish a gewalt, One was attacking from this side. There were thousands of Egyptians on that island, And a few kids, mamish, took over the whole island, In the middle of the night. And the Egyptians surrendered, Because one came and blew it up from this side, and the other from the other side, and they were in the middle. So they just gave themselves up. I'm sure after they gave themselves up, and they saw the only 2 blown up ships, It's 20 Yidalach, But what's the strangest thing in the world is, You and I know the truth. Take the whole world. Do you think the world ever taught their children history about the Maccabees? Never. Have you ever studied history? Maccabees? That 71 people drove out the whole Greek Empire? Did they ever study about Bar Kokhba? That's the strangest thing, as if he would have been betrayed by spies. Bar Kokhba could have knocked off the whole Roman Empire. The truth, right? In history, did they ever teach about the 6-Day War, that Mamish kids knocked off the whole world? Or even today, I haven't seen one newspaper writing anything good about the Jews. We're just happy if they don't write much too bad, You know what it is? Because all those kids, they're really connected to that which is hidden, From another world, Mamish from another world. Just hope for the best. Can someone bring me my guitar and let's Mamish go strong. We need some candles and let's Mamish celebrate like mad.
Zion temale, Ibane Amigdash, Ir Zion, Ir Zion, Ir Zion, Ir Zion, Temale. Ibane Amigdash, 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 Ir Zion, Temale. V'sham nashir shir chadash u'v'nanale. V'sham nashir shir chadash u'v'nanale. B'nei Amigdash, Ir Zion, Temale. B'nei Amigdash, B'nei Amigdash, Ir Zion, Temale. B'nei Amigdash, B'nei Amigdash, Ir Zion, Temale. B'nei Amigdash, B'nei Amigdash, Ir Zion, Temale. Sham nashir, sham nashir, shir v'nodobina, v'nanale, sham nashir, sham nashir, shir v'nodobina, v'nanale, lai, 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 Sham nashir, sham nashir, shir v'nodobina, v'nanale, sham nashir, sham nashir, shir v'nodobina, v'nanale, sham nashir, sham nashir, shir v'nodobina, v'nanale, sham nashir, sham nashir, shir v'nodobina, v'nanale. Oh, 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 ay, 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 ay. I vishamna shir chodash u'bina onona